In this video, I paint a miniature in the style of an expressionist. Hello Bits Brewed, it's Craig from bitspots.co.uk here with another painting video. So I've had a little bit of a sort around in here and sort of moved the room around slightly, which is why I'm filming an intro in a different place as normal. But hopefully this looks okay. In this video I'm going to try something completely different. I'm going to try and use like an expressionist style to sort of paint a miniature. So miniatures are normally painted in sort of realism. You know, you want your miniature to look as sort of realistic as possible. But I thought, let's try something different. The inspiration has come from Edvard Munch's The Scream, which is a painting I'm sure you're all familiar with. I want to try and use some of the colour palettes here, and also sort of the style of the sort of thick brush strokes and things like that. Lots of different colours happening. So it's an experiment. Might not be everyone's cup of tea. I've tried it on a few Delac miniatures and I'm now going to paint another one. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. Before we do that, I just want to say a massive thank you and a huge shout out to all of our Patreons. If you want to know what our Patreon is all about, there's a link in the description down below. So yeah, let's hit the desk. Okay, so here I have just a regular Delac guy. I mean, you can use this technique or this scheme on anything really, especially if they have robes. I'm just using this Delac for an example. I've used a brush on primer. It's a bit too cold to use sprays this time of year. Don't give as smooth as a finish, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to paint over it. And I'm going to start by taking some Rhinox hide and literally just going to cover over all the robes. Now, because I've used a light grey primer, I should get away with one coat. Even if you've gone over black, you should be okay. You don't need the purest, smoothest of coverage here, but I might just do a thin second coat anyway. But we will go over most of this. I feel like the Rhinox hide is just a really good base for this sort of scheme we're going for. Okay, so here's how he's looking with all that Rhinox hide. So it's not fully dry yet, but it doesn't matter. It'll even help with blends and whatnot. I know this sort of style paint doesn't have a lot of blends, but if you want to have little sort of blends, you can. I'm going to take some, if I can find it, some Havadon Black, and I'm sort of just going to paint sort of lines of this in the recesses. And I'm not trying to be particularly neat here. Just sort of stick the lines in. I don't know how easy it is to see on camera, but just put lines of this darker colour. I'll thin that out a little bit. Like I say, if any of the Rhinox hide's a bit wet, that'll sort of blend into it quite nicely. Doesn't matter if it doesn't. But this sort of style of painting's, you know, you're expected to see all the brush strokes and stuff, so you don't have to be neat, you don't even have to be too realistic where you stick the shadows and highlights really, but I do like to just have them in places where you would expect. Because the Rhinox hide's quite dark as well, and it's quite subtle. And what I will do is I will let it all dry before we go on to the next bit. Okay, so now we're going to work on some other colours and highlights and such. So, I'm still using the Scream image as reference, of course, and you can see there's plenty of different colours in the sort of boardwalk area that I'm going to try and replicate. So first one I'm going to take is Zandri Dust. So really it's a case of thinning it out a little bit. You don't particularly have to, I suppose, but You do get a lot more control if you do. And yeah, essentially I'm just going to be sort of painting lines of this. You don't necessarily have to go where the highlights are, you could just sort of go anywhere. And yeah, let's give it a go. Just sort of being random with it. They haven't even got to be like sort of full lines, they haven't got to be, you know, they haven't got to go from one side of the cloak to the other, they don't have to join up together. It's just a random pattern of colour. Now put quite a few on, because this Rhinox hide is only going to make up a small part of the overall colour. I wish my brush would keep a tip a little bit better. GW brushes for you. And yeah, hopefully you guys can see that okay. Just these sort of random lines of colour on there. They haven't all got to go sort of parallel to each other either. Obviously when you go and buy a reference where they are all sort of parallel, because it's just a straight shape, it can be sort of tempting to do that. Try and sort of follow some of the lines of the actual miniature you're working on as well. Now it's not going to look like much at this stage, of course. Even after we add a few colours, it still might not be to everyone's taste, but there are ways where we can bring all these colours together towards the end of the video, and hopefully you guys will like the finished effect. Okay, so that's the first colour done. So that was Xandri Dust. I'm now going to take some Scrag Brown. So with this colour, I'm not going to use as much of it. I've probably thinned that out just a bit too much there. I want to put a little bit more on. Don't want this to be too transparent. It is quite a bright colour. So just randomly going to put in some Scrag Brown areas. Now I really like Scrag Brown. It's one of my favourite browns in the range. Sort of very orangey brown. Just going to sort of just stick it randomly. It doesn't even matter if you go over some of the old lines either. You can see it's a little bit too thin, so it's a bit too transparent. I'll put on a bit thicker than the iron. Because you want this colour to stand out a little bit. Of course that's all personal choice. Just random little dots on the arms. Some there. What we got going on the back. I'm just going to go over a couple of these earlier ones. Now if you've got straps and things like that like I have, you don't have to paint them in the same way. You could just choose one of your colours and paint them that way. I'm not going to focus on like the entire miniature in this video, but we'll look at the majority of it. So there's a little bit of Scrag Brown there. So the next colour is Rust Grey. Now if you notice on the screen that we're using for reference, there is some sort of bluey grey in there. There's even like a really sort of bright greeny white. So I'm not going to add, but I'm going to add Rust Grey. Now with this Rust Grey, if I get back in shot, I'm going to focus more on where some of the highlights would go. You don't have to, obviously, you can put them wherever you want. But I really like the Rust Grey in this scheme. It's just really sort of out of the box. Like you'd never use it normally to sort of highlight browns, and it doesn't really act as a highlight, even though that's how I'm applying it. But it does make it more visually interesting. Some around his collar. So if I sort of bring him up to the camera now, how easy it is to see. I apologise, there's a bit of shadow going on. But yeah, lots of different colours going on there, and I'm going to add another brown onto there as well. It's all overall looking a bit too right upside for my liking with it. I mean, really, you could have started, or I could have started with another brown, but I like to sort of start with some of the darker colours and sort of work up. But you can just keep going back and forth with this as much as you want. Now I'm thinking, I've got some Baneblade brown. I'll take some Baneblade brown. Let's add another brown colour in there. And any sort of areas where there's a lot of the right side going on, I'm just going to shove this colour in. That's similar to the Xandri dust, it's more sort of muted. And I'm just going for little patches, little lines. You can see where we've really got a lot of randomness happening here. I'm going to sort of try and put some in to give it a bit more coverage. Now I do feel like it could maybe do a little bit of Fenrisian, or Rust Grey, sorry, Rust Grey in there. You could use Fenrisian, but I think it's a bit too light. So, you still want some of that Rhinox hide, of course, so okay, there we go. Now obviously, because some areas aren't going to be painted this colour, that are a bit Rhinox hide still, that also tricks the eye a little bit. I'm just going to get a bit more of that Rust Grey, and just in this area here, sticking a bit there, a little fold down here, and a little bit there. Let's see, we've got all these sort of random colours now going on, still mostly browns. Okay, so I'm going to give that a couple of minutes to dry, and then we'll go on to the next step of sort of trying to bring these colours together even more. So I'm going to take some Agrax Earthshade now and just sort of apply it over this entire area. And this will obviously pull naturally into the recess areas, but it'll also tint all these colours and it'll bring them together a little bit. Darken down some of them, especially the Rust Grey. Now you might find you want to do a couple of coats of this to really bring them together. Again, we're not looking for them all to be blended together or anything here, they're still going to stand out and the individual brush strokes will stand out. But that's the sort of style we're going for. And of course, don't feel limited to this sort of colour palette I've used. You can of course just use any colours you want. You know, anything goes really. So I quite like that. I'm going to let that dry. And then I'll show you how we're going to do these skin areas. Okay, so you'll probably notice that the skin on the Scream is this sort of yellow, orange, there's sort of really sort of pale, sort of greeny white in there as well. I find Morghast Bone is a good base. Now, of course, being 3D and quite small miniatures, you do have to be sort of very careful with all your little highlights and whatnot on the skin. But of course, in this stage, we're literally just applying a base coat, so you don't need to worry. But keep it thin, do a couple of coats, because even though you're not going for a realist approach, you still don't really want to lose that detail. So next I'm going to take some Jokero orange and just going to add some little bits of this just in random spots, so mainly on his forehead, on his cheeks a little bit. Again, it's just sort of random placement here, and I'll use a wash at the end to bring this all together as well. A little bit on his fingers. A little bit on the wrist. So next up, I'm going to take some Wraithbone, and I'm going to apply this slightly similar to how I would with highlights. On his nose, forehead, sort of raised cheek areas. I'm going to go across sort of his knuckles and fingers as well. Just need a little bit more on the palette. And just like so. I'm using very small amounts of this. Okay, and then we'll just add one more colour, and then we'll just get a wash to bring it all together. So I'm going to bring out Baneblade Brown again, and thin it out and just use little bits of it again, just to sort of break colour up, so not too much of that base coat, and again just small amounts, sort of random placements. Now I'm no art critic, so there could be method behind the placement of all the different colours on these types of paintings. I'm sure some of the lighter colours at times are used where there's highlights, and dark colours and shadows of course. But no, there are a lot of instances where the colour is quite random, so I mean either way the end result normally looks quite nice. So in regards to a wash, I mean you could use anything here. I'm probably just going to be boring and use Reikland Flesh Shade. But experiment, and that's what these videos are about. It's very easy to just, well it's not easy, but to try and paint sort of realist, as everyone else does. And so especially in the sort of Blanjitsu stuff, it's a good sort of time to experiment if you're doing your Blanjitsu style videos. Some fun on the sepia wash. Not really liking how that's sort of making these colours darker, so you might want to thin it out a little bit. Luckily, because it's a wash, it'll take a while to dry, so I'm just going to put some water on the brush, thin that out. I probably used a bit too much Jokero orange there, but what I will do, even though that's darkened it out, I'm going to take the Agrax just to go in his mouth. Add some more shadow to that, and around the eyes as well. And once that's dry, I'll probably go back in with just a little bit of Wraithbone to take away some of that Jokero orange. So if you're going to use some of the orange on the skin, I'd recommend just very tiny amounts, or maybe keep it quite thin and use it more like a glaze. But that's not looking too bad. I think once we get a little Wraithbone back in, then skin colour is going to be good. So in regards to metallics now, you can just paint them as metallics, and that's what I've done with some of my other ones of these. Or you can maybe again have some fun with it, and I'm thinking, you know, why not? Let's do that before I end this video. Let's have some fun with the metallic areas. Okay, so I have just given them just some extra wraith bone, and I'm trying to focus just on the skin areas. Now I was looking at some of the pictures of the test miniatures I've done a little while ago, a few weeks ago now, before I started filming this, and I did actually give them some sort of purple wash on their face, so you got to try and do that as well if you wanted the skin to be more pale and cool. I've gone for like I've tried to go for more sort of warmer skin tone in this one to try and keep with the sort of warm feel that you get from the Scream painting, because it's very warm painting. I'm saying that we are now going to go sort of cool on the metallic, so I'm going to take some Administratum Grey. And I'm just going to basically just paint everything metallic with this. Now, some areas might end up being black, and I'll just paint that how I would normally paint black, because it's only black at the end of the day. Of course, if you look at the Scream as well, his black clothes, you can add some browns and stuff to it to make the black more interesting. I'll leave that with you guys though. This video is probably getting quite long. So yeah, we'll focus on these areas. We've actually got a gun on his back as well. So we'll get these base coated, now I'll be back. Okay, so if you look on the screen to our right of the character in the middle, there's this nice little area where there's like just sort of random colours. There's some blues, some reds, some greens, and some sort of tan colours in there as well. We can sort of follow some of this for the metallics. I'm going to get our good friend Russ Gray back out and do some random lines of that, but I'm going to try and sort of this time sort of go parallel with the lines themselves and with the shape of the pieces. And of course Russ Gray is going to be very subtle on the Administratum Grey, so I apologise if it's very hard to see on the camera. Just know it's there. Just random lines really. I should have switched brush really for this one because it's in the thinnest of tips on the brush, but never mind. I'm just putting them across. Now obviously not all these areas will end up being metal, but just do the ones what I know will be. Okay, so let's just go completely out of the box now and take some WasDakka Red. I thinned that out, and I'm just going to do some random sort of lines like that. Not going to do much because I'm quite unsure myself, but this is all about having fun now, if it wasn't before. It might look terrible, in which case just paint over it with silver, that's fine. Just, I'm experimenting now. And then if it doesn't look any good, then you guys will know not to do it. Simple as that, but a few little bits there. And then I'm going to take some Baneblade Brown again, put in a little bit of that. Again, just little lines of it. I'm going to go over some of this WasDakka Red. I think we just need minimal amounts of that. And I won't read as straight as the lines I got there. Try to be a bit more careful. I find with this approach you want to just, so tempted to try and just do sort of quick flicks of the colours sometimes, but you probably do need that. A lot of miniatures probably need a bit more control, so I apologise. I completely neglected this area here actually. It's not good. So I'll put in a little bit of rust grey on there. And then I think what I'll do is get a nice light colour. And use that for some highlights. So let's go quite bright with some little fawn grey. And sort of apply that as we would sort of highlights. So running a highlight along these cylinder areas. Do a line across the top. Get them actually in shot would be nice. A line across the top of the gun. Around the top edge there. Again, I'm not being massively neat. A little bit on there. Some on the top there. Oh, and a little bit there. And there's some on there. And then I think, obviously there's not much contrast now, so I think a wash on top of it. That'll bring some of the colours together. I'm going to take a Nuln Oil for this one. And then I'll bring out the details as well. So there's like the gun there. I'm going quite heavy with it. Dirty it up a bit and the details. So yeah, I mean it's different. It's probably not amazing, but trying to fit in with that little sort of different and wacky nature of this miniature. Sorry, I keep going out of shot now. I've got no excuses to go out of shot now because I can clearly see what I'm doing on the camera. So yeah, there's still a lot of experimentation to be had with this new setup as well. If it doesn't come out bright enough, then I'll obviously have to move where the lights are. And I'm just trying to get up so I'm in a comfortable position to film and paint. Okay. So I mean, it didn't come out too bad actually. For sort of red, almost sort of gives us this sort of little rust look on there. I find the greys are probably a little bit too smooth, so you could certainly add some other greys in there. But yeah, it's not awful. Again, it's hard to sort of get out of the mindset of the sort of a realist approach that we do when we paint these miniatures. But it's something different. So what I'm going to do is paint up some other areas off camera and then I'll show you him at the end. And then I've got some pictures of some of the older ones I experimented with about a few weeks ago, to maybe a month ago. And they're slightly lighter as well. I think I went over a lot more of that Rhinox hide, which was probably what I should have done with this guy, but I still quite like how he's turned out. And he certainly has this sort of gritty, sort of Blanjitsu sort of nature to him still. So yeah, I'll just get some little bits finished and then I'll be back. Okay, so I thought I'd come off the tripod and show you how he's looking now. Still a couple of little bits. I'll add some black to the weapons and his holster on the back there, but yeah, I'm very happy with how he's came out. It's a nice sort of different way of painting these. The metal doesn't look too bad at all, in my opinion. What I'd probably do is go back to a more sort of realist approach that we normally associate with miniature painting, and maybe add some sort of dirt and grime and rust effects to it. I mean, don't be afraid to sort of mix more traditional methods with this different style. But as you can see, we've got all these different colours happening on his robes, and that wash just sort of helps bring them together, so it doesn't look too bad. And I'm actually quite liking the warm skin as well. Now he's sort of close to completion. I will show you in a minute just the other miniatures that I've done in this sort of style. They're slightly different. They've got sort of less Rhinox hide shown through, and they have a sort of cool skin tone rather than a warm one, as mentioned earlier. And yeah, I'll leave it there. The video's quite long, and yeah, if you want to sort of do sort of Blandjitsu stuff, or you just want to experiment with something different, then you know, find something as reference and just play around with the colours and give it a go. You know, we're not going for ultra realism here, but I think it still works as a miniature quite nicely. It'll look pretty good on the tabletop. So yeah, that's all that's left to say, and enjoy the photos of some of my other miniatures that I've tried. So this was the first one I painted, my very first sort of test miniature. As you can see, I just went traditional on the metal on his robes. I think I might have even started with a slightly lighter brown, so if you prefer this sort of look, then feel free to switch out the Rhinox hide for something lighter. The skin has like a very mild sort of purple wash on it, and it uses some lighter tones as well. You can sort of use like powdered witch flesh and things like that. And I've gone for a mild little glow around the eyes. And the second one, I pretty much did the same thing. You can see this a bit more sort of orangey brown sort of used in the robes. I actually really like this one. I think he did start with the Rhinox hide, mind you, although you can see I mostly went over a lot of it. And you can see little bits of it sort of showing through on the robes. And yeah, not as much of the rust grey on this one. But pretty much done the skin in a similar way as well. And I'm sort of doing yellow on the sort of eye lenses for all of these. I think it stands out really nice. So yeah, not really much to say what I haven't said already. Feel free to give it a go if you want to try something different. And I'll probably be looking at other sort of paint styles as well for miniatures. So and of course, if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Feel free to like and subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you again in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, then please feel free to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. You can also click that bell icon to be notified when a new video has gone live on this channel. On the screen now are 2 more videos that you may wish to check out, and a link to our Patreon page also. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.